Hello, TVNC team managers. My name is Robin Napier, and I'm one of the regional directors for TVNC.
And I'm Margaret O'Connor. I'm the Regional Training Director for TVNC.
And today we're going to talk about using the roadmap.
What the heck is the roadmap?
The roadmap is one of the materials you got with your team number that you downloaded from the DI website. It is the document that tells you how to manage your team and gives you all kinds of tools. So, are you a little confused by the roadmap? It's a great tool, and there's no question about that, but there's a lot of information there, and it could be a lot to read and a little overwhelming for a new team manager. So we're going to talk about how you can effectively use it with limited time. Before we go any farther, however, it might be a good idea for you to download the packet of handouts on the training page on our website at tvncdi.org, and it should be labeled using the roadmap.
So you mean right now we should pause the video and go get that?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea. If you have the roadmap, you can refer to that. However, we're not going to be using page numbers, so it might be easier for you to just download the document. These are the sections in the roadmap. I'm not going to go over all of this. You know what a table of contents is. I do have one suggestion for you. This is a large document. It's well over 100 pages. I suggest that you not print the whole thing, that you download it, save it, and use it as you need it. The table of contents will help you find things really quickly, and there is an introduction that tells you how to use it, tells you what the little symbols are for, and what is in each section. Note that the skills for creative and critical thinking is actually called thinking skills. The educational foundations are reviewed. I would skim over that. It's the educational basis of the program. It's nice to know it is not going to help you a lot with managing your team. Each section starts with a general explanation or an overview. The guiding your team section is what we are going to concentrate on the most on in this video. So we'll address it more completely later. There is an interference section that kind of supplements the interference section in Rules of the Road, which is important because it's the basis for DI. There's an instant challenge section. It has some great information about strategies to use in solving your instant challenges. And the instant challenges in that section go from simple to complex. I suggest reading the general information on how to solve ICs and wait to actually read the instant challenges when you need them. Thinking tools or thinking skills for creative and critical thinking are the tools that you'll use with your team to help them come up with more creative solutions, more of them, and how to focus in on the ones they actually want to use. Facilitating for teamwork. Of course your team needs to be able to work together as a cohesive whole. We also have a really good video on team building in our video library on our website. And then project management is the last section. These are just tools for organizing the process of solving the challenge and keeping the team on track. And we'll address this a lot more in this section as well. There are a lot of tools for project management, and what you're going to find out is that you can't possibly have enough time to use them all. So let's put it all together. In the Guiding Your Team section, this is the basis of planning the team meetings. It references the tools, the activities, and the ICs, and the other sections. There are informational sections that review the program components, the program overview. There's more about the educational foundation, more of that information that you've probably already seen elsewhere in the document. The Instant Challenge shopping list is a useful tool because it gives you a list of all of the materials and the quantities that you will need to solve all of the instant challenges in the roadmap one time. You can buy them, you can gather those items as you need them, but if you do it all up front at once, it saves you a lot of time. My suggestion is to put a team parent in charge of doing that to kind of take some of the load off of yourself. Then the solving the challenge section, we'll revisit this methodology later.
But I do want to say that we have a live training on solving the challenge where the team managers then break out into the individual challenges to really delve into the specifics and the details of each challenge. It's a great training, and we hope you'll be there.
Questioning is a useful section because it gives you some examples of some great questions you can use with your team to help them come up with better, more creative ideas, and to help them think through their ideas more clearly.
Another great reason to be a good questioner is that it keeps your ideas out of the mix and helps you get the kids to think a little deeper or to think a little broader so that you don't have to suggest ideas to them. With a little questioning, they'll come up with things you never even thought of.
And then what we're going to spend the most time on is the general and specific agenda. So let's talk more about that. So first we have the general agenda. First we have the general agendas. In your packet, I have given you all of the general agendas that are in the roadmap. Some examples, and we can go over one example. A general agenda for a team member meeting. This can be adapted for any time during the season, but it doesn't have any references to any of the other tools, instant challenges. You'll have to figure that out on your own. But it's a very flexible agenda that gives you time frames that you can change to meet your needs depending on where you are in the season. Then there's also a parent meeting agenda, meeting number 1. And we go over the parent meeting agenda as well as an initial team member meeting in the Getting Started, the nuts and bolts of Getting Started video. The initial team member meeting is great for all first meetings. Additional challenge decision team meetings. If you need more time, more meetings to help your team come to a decision on which challenge they're doing, there are a lot of good tools in that agenda to help them decide on a challenge. There are more objective, less emotional ways to decide on a challenge, and this gives you a lot of ideas for how to do that. A lot of teams get stuck between half the team wants one challenge and half the team wants another challenge, and this will help them decide which one they want to do. And then there are some additional agendas for different types of meetings, depending on where you are in the season.
So the great thing about the variety of agendas that are provided in the roadmap is that they're a general guideline. And we'll talk about the more specific ones versus the most general ones. But in each one, there are time frames designated for each kind of activity that you'll work with your team on. And so some of the ways to make sure that you get everything that you need to do in is to look at those time spreads. And as the season goes on, you may need less time on teamwork, but that you'd want to increase a little bit of time for skill building on instant challenge or skill building on skills that the team needs to learn to be able to solve the challenge that they've decided to do.
Keep in mind that if you use these general agendas, there are no references really to thinking tools or instant challenges or project management tools. That's all for you to figure out on your own. But they do give you a little bit more flexibility.
And of course, in the other sections that are in the roadmap, you'll have the opportunity to incorporate those tools, those thinking skills. And if you're doing the early learning challenge, the Rising Star level, most of the kinds of activities that you would do with the team are actually included in the Rising Star or Early Learning Challenge.
Okay, so these are the pros and cons of using the general agendas. The pros are they do offer more flexibility. If you're an experienced team manager, you probably don't need somebody telling you exactly what to do at every meeting, and you may have your own system figured out. So it's easier to tailor to the number of meetings you're going to have and the length of the meetings. Of course, the cons are that they do require more planning on the part of the team manager, and they have fewer specific suggestions for IC's tools and activities. So let's go on then to the more specific meeting agendas. There are agendas for 16 different meetings. The first one starts after the challenge has already been chosen. So you'll need to do one of the other agendas in the other section first, just to come up with a challenge that your team's going to do. They have full references to what instant challenges to do at what time, and thinking tools that you can use with your team at certain times to do certain things, and what project management tools are appropriate at what stage. And it also has some great references to some great team building activities and other activities that you can do with your team. They have to be adapted for the number of team meetings you're going to have and the length of time in your meetings. One thing that you will note if you look at these agendas is that the last few agendas cover several different meetings, so you can adjust those pretty easily to the number of team meetings that you're going to have. Also, since it starts after your challenge has already been chosen, you've already been meeting with your team at least for a few meetings, and so you've already gotten exposed to instant challenge and you've done some team building activities, so some of that time may be able to be shortened. So the pros and cons of using these agendas are that there's less planning time required on the part of the team manager, and there are obviously more suggestions for specific activities, tools, and instant challenges. So they may be a lot easier for a new team manager to use. And then the cons are that they're less flexible, they're harder to adjust, and they're more... Okay, so just tips for shortening your agendas or your meetings. Decide ahead of time what the focus of your meeting is going to be, and then, if it's on building your team, your solution, then that's what you spend time on. You have to decide that before the meeting. That's part of the planning. As the tournament nears, you can consider adding a second meeting, maybe around December. Some teams start before that, meeting a second time. And if you have team members that are just too busy to do that, make that second meeting a garage day for whoever is available to work on building. And this happens to shorten the challenge time at regular meetings, and it works for kids that have busy schedules and can't come to a second meeting.
This is a good reason to have a co-team manager or another parent helping you with team meetings, because sometimes on those garage days you can have groups of kids working on one aspect, say script writing or artistic elements, and another group working on the more technical engineering or building sorts of activities. And so it gives you a double whammy and utilizes your time well.
So let's talk about the project management tools. This is the last section of the roadmap, and it's the newest section. These tools will help keep the team on schedule if you use them, and make sure that all of the work gets done. And the ability to use them is really going to depend on the age of the kids. It's important to note that the blank worksheets are at the back of the section. These are the ones that we strongly suggest you use to simplify the process. The challenge requirements identification worksheet. This is actually in the guiding your team section, and it's in your packet. It's excellent for breaking down the challenge to help make sure the team understands what all of the major elements are and what all of the requirements are. I suggest you do that in the beginning with your team challenge. Then the deliverable requirements planning chart is just a list of what the challenge requires, and in addition to that, what the team decides it requires for each of those elements. A project goals worksheet can be very short, very subjective. All of the team members need to be on the same page about their goals, so this just puts it in black and white. Then team roles and responsibilities just says who is responsible for doing what, who's primary, who's secondary, if you want to get to that level of detail. Those are the tools that I think are the most important to use if you're going to use any of the tools. Then the next ones are kind of nice to have. They get a lot more detailed actually. Resources, constraints, and assumptions. This is too much for younger kids to take part in, but it does break down what are the resources that you're going to need for every single thing you will be doing. What are the constraints, what might get in the way, and what are you assuming? For example, if you're making a vehicle, are you assuming that you're going to have a hard surfaced floor? And you might not. So those are the kinds of things that you need to put on that worksheet. And then deliverables and dependencies just helps determine the sequence of execution, which you probably can figure out without that worksheet. Then additional worksheets that are not as critical, milestones and tasks sequencing, extremely detailed estimates about how much time you're going to be to need to do every single little task in every element. And then resource planning documents everything you need, how much it costs. You're probably going to do that along the way anyway. Risk management worksheet. If you have technical elements, there might be risks associated with them, so this helps plan for that. So why do project management? It's planning up front, helps with disasters later, and it keeps the team from falling behind. It can help you figure out how long everything is going to take and establish a timeline. But remember, it's a lot. It's a lot to do, and you as a team manager will probably be doing most of it. So remember, the team can plan some elements and execute and go back and plan others. That helps the younger teams who need short-term goals.
I'm going to break in here and say that I think that the project management tools section is great if you've never really been exposed to project management, or if you want a way to translate that into how to use this sort of process with kids. You may just end up using this section to sort of help you figure out how you want to help them manage the project through the time without every single one of these worksheets and timelines.
My word of warning is that don't get hung up on them. They're tools. Use them if you think they're going to help you, but don't let it take the fun out of the process, because this needs to be a fun thing for the kids to do, and it needs to be fun for you as well. Okay, thinking tools. Just briefly, thinking tools are used to generate and focus on ideas. They'll help your team dig deeper, come up with more and better ideas, and help them focus on the ones they're going to use in an objective manner instead of voting, so that everybody has a buy-in. They are integrated into these agendas. So, and they are great tools to use. But for more information on them, the use of thinking tools, just refer to the video Thinking Tools and the Creative Processing process that is on our website.
The bottom line in this program is that we're teaching our kids ways to make decisions, ways to unleash their creativity, and ways to work together the thinking tools give you concrete ways besides just put your head down and hold your hand up for what you like best, that these kids will be able to take throughout their lives with them to be better decision makers and more creative thinkers.
Hopefully this helps you in your use of making sense of the roadmap. It is a great tool. It's one that didn't exist when I started this or when Margaret started this. And it can be absorbed a little at a time. You don't have to do it all at once.
Thanks so much, and here's to a great year.